In the past, I've beaten both Persona 4 and Persona 3 by only using one type of magic, and for the longest time, I wanted to do the same with Persona 5, but a certain boss fight made me think it was impossible. But then I thought, why not try it out? Worst case scenario, I have to upload another failed challenge run. But now with my mind set, I need to figure out what type of magic to use. Obviously, light and dark magic are out of the picture due to them not having break skills. And as much as I would love to use nuke or psychic magic, I learned their break skills far too late into the game. So I was stuck with the original quartet of magic skills. And seeing as I've already done a video on Agi, Zio, and Bufu, it only seemed fitting to give Garu its time in the spotlight. So now, on to the rules. Firstly, the only magic I can use are Garu spells as well as other wind magic. Furthermore, I'm also allowing healing spells as well as buffs and debuffs. Now in my previous challenges, I've banned the use of all-out attacks because, well, they aren't magic attacks. But because Persona 5 really pushes all-out attacks, I'll allow them for this challenge. And if you have a problem with that, then feel free to fill out this complaint form. Another type of move I'm removing the ban for are status ailment moves. I'm sure you know why, but if you don't, then I'll explain later on. And finally, I must be playing on hard mode. Now with these rules stated, let me get my shameless plug over with. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing to the channel to show me that you like content like this. Now with that over with, I believe it's time to start the game. And the game starts like always. Joker gets arrested and I have to choose my difficulty, which in this case is hard mode, before choosing my name.
Don't expect to walk out of here in one piece.
And as the tradition goes, I have to give him a funny Yakuza name that really fits the situation because if you know, you know. Then with that done, Sai starts her interrogation. And from there, Joker recounts the last few months of his life, starting with his move to LeBlanc and his transfer to Shujin Academy, ruled by Big Tubby over here. So everything was going fine until Diddy Diddy'd all over my screen. And that really pissed off this vulgar boy, as well as me, because this is a household, people. Anyway, me and the vulgar boy head to school, but not before my phone's Bluetooth device is ready to pair. And when it pairs, we both end up in this castle. So like true intellectuals we are, we enter the mysterious castle, only to get jailed. But at least we can negotiate with the ruler to get freed, right? Never mind. So that only leaves option 2, awaken to the power of the French and beat this guy up. Now the only issue is that Arsene doesn't have any wind magic, so for now I just have to rely on the knife that conveniently spawns in my hand anytime I attack. And after locking up the king, we skedaddle away. But as we make our escape, we come across the most useful character in this run, Kitty. So because of that, we free him from his cell. And now the challenge can officially begin, is what I would have said if it wasn't for the few upcoming battles. So instead, the challenge will officially begin when I can freely infiltrate Kamoshida's palace. But for now, with the help of Morgana, we managed to escape the castle, only for the vulgar boy, who we now know as Ryuji, to want to re-enter it. So we do. And after a bunch more tutorial stuff that makes Persona 4's intro seem short in comparison, me and Ryuji witness the baby oil chambers and decide to leave this castle for good, only to then get stopped by the king. And when we ask him why his palace is a castle instead of an island, he gets a bit pissed and threatens to decapitate me and Kitty. So in order to save us, Ryuji awakens to his persona, and I get my first boss battle. Now originally I did try to beat Eligor with only Garu, but I gave up due to the fact that Morgana's defense is straight ass cheeks. Also because I only have a baguette loving persona, and not the good kind of baguette lover. But thanks to the help of Ryuji's electric magic, Iki, Eligor as well as the two bicorns were reduced to nothing. And after leaving the castle yet again, I start my first social link of the game, the Chariot Arcana with Ryuji. So now if a third persona user, me and Ryuji, tried to dig up some dirt on this certified lover boy. But when we finally get evidence, we realize that there's nothing we can do, being literal kids and all. So we give up, is what I would have said if it wasn't for Kitty, because he shows up out of nowhere and tells us how we can change Kamoshida's heart, but it may cost him his life. And while I really don't give a rat's ass, Ryuji doesn't really want to gamble it, so we decide to wait for now. And during this time, I speak with An about her relationship with Kamoshida. And yeah, it's not good, but what's arguably worse is that Kamoshida causes, well, I can't really say due to censorship reasons, but I'm sure you can infer with your eyes. Anyway, afterwards we confront him about it, only for him to hit us with the iconic womp womp before threatening to expel us. Now, really our only choice is to steal his heart. Then we enter the palace for a third time, and we accidentally bring An in with us, so we have to kick her out, only for her to re-enter yet again, this time getting captured by Gunashida. Then after one quick Belthgor fight to show off An's new persona, we leave the palace again, but this time I start the Lover's social link with An, as well as I start the Automatic Magician social link with Morgana, and from this point on, my challenge officially begins. Now, luckily for me, during the tutorial on how to recruit personas, I recruited a Bicorn, so I just have to get him to level 6 to get Garu. So for the time being, Morgana is my only attacker. And if you're wondering on how I can even recruit personas during this run, well, it's all thanks to An, because at level 7 she learns Dormina, a move that has a high chance to put one foe to sleep. Now, this doesn't sound like much, but in Persona 5, Atlas introduced technical hits, kinda like critical hits or weakness hits, but to get one you have to use the right type of attack on an enemy with an ailment, and sleep is the best one because any attack on a sleeping enemy has the chance to result in a technical hit, and this is how I cheesed most mini-boss fights in this challenge. And the reason why I say most is because the first mini-boss of this palace blocked sleep. Also, remember how I said Morgana had an ass cheek level of defense? Well, turn 1, Archangel charges, so I guard with my entire party, but even that couldn't stop Morgana from wiping out. Luckily, I had the Breeze Ring at this point, so An was able to attack it while Joker debuffed, so that it couldn't one-shot An. But luckily for me, this was the hardest mini-boss of the palace, because with the Lil Mara Chode, as well as the two Eligors that held the keys, I was able to put them to sleep and spam them with technical hits and all-out attacks. Now with all the will seeds as well as a route to the treasure, we can finally steal the treasure, is what I would have said if it wasn't for the fact that Kamoshida sniffed us out like a predator hunting prey. Okay, that was probably a really bad analogy given who Kamoshida is, but anyway, we gotta fight his shadow now to change his heart. Luckily before this fight, I fused Garu onto a Jack Frost for a higher magic stat, as well as I returned the Breeze Ring back to An because she also had a higher magic stat. Finally, for Ryuji, I gave him the Crystal of Lust so he could at least heal during this fight. Now, in order to even do damage to Kamoshida, you first need to get rid of his Golden Cum Chalice, because if you don't, he'll get a little peckish and start to nibble from it. Then once you dispose of it, he'll call over Mishima and perform a golden metal spike, and in order not to be blown up by it, I have to guard with the entire party. But because Mishima is a shit for brains, the attack isn't that strong, so he calls over Shiho for the next pitch, or whatever the fuck it's called in volleyball. Anyway, to stop him from using the move, we have to target Shiho. Luckily she's weak to everything, so it wasn't hard to eliminate her. Now at this point the game prompts you with the idea of stealing the crown, and in order to steal it, you need to do enough damage to distract him, and in the past, I've always failed at this part, and I just had to fight him like a normal boss. But this time, I managed to deal enough damage for Ryuji to swipe the crown, and with it gone, Kamoshida takes massive damage until I was able to knock him out. Now with the treasure in hand, all we can do is wait for his change of heart. So during this time, I work on my social stats, as well as I start some new social links. The Hierophant Arcana with Sojiro, which I'll have to work on later, as well as I start the Death Arcana with Takemi. And chat, I don't care what you say about it, but I'm cracking Takemi this run, and you ain't gonna stop me. But other than that, I just work on the social links I have access to, as well as I learned that you can actually read books at Leblon at night. This is like my 5th playthrough of the game at this point. Then after a couple days, Kamoshida admits to the whole school that he's on a certain someone's everyone's list. And judging from his reaction, I bet he's also on said list. But anyway, Kamoshida's change of heart was successful. So in order to celebrate, Joker and the crew go out to eat at a fancy restaurant, where I get to hear my favorite Morgana line.
Beans?
And after a quick run-in with the motherfucker who stole the chipmunks from Dave, me and the others decide to keep acting as the Phantom Thieves. And I just so happen to have yet another perfect name, because if you know, you know. But following this, I start the Moon Arcana with Mishima. And chat, you might want to cover your ears for this one, but in order to start a really important social link for this run, I'm sadly forced to get a job. So into the wage cage I go. But before I start putting the fries in the bag, I enter Mementos using the Monocar so that I can change Nakanohara's heart. And his Obarion fight isn't really hard due to the sleeping strategy I mentioned before, so with a final all-out attack, he was finished. But after we beat his shadow, he asked us to change the heart of this Madarame guy. But we really don't care what he says because he has a bowl cut. Plus, it's not like I'll randomly stumble across this guy anytime soon. Well, I'll be damned. Anyway, it's probably important to mention that I start the counselor social link with Dr. Maruki after he lured me into his office with snacks. But back to Yusuke and Madarame. We end up doing a bit of snooping and it turns out Madarame does have a palace. But just because he has one doesn't mean that he's evil. So we can't do anything without proof. And we end up getting that proof because the real life Nakanohara contacts us and blows the whistle about everything Madarame has done. So in order to save Yusuke, we decide to steal Madarame's heart. And the infiltration was going well up until we ran into this red fence of evil. But Morgana recognizes the door behind the red fence of evil because it was the same door in Madarame's shack. So if we can open up that door in his house, then the red fence of evil will disappear. But that's not all I have to do, because I need to grind up until level 17, that way I can get Nekomata. Then after a few more battles, I get her to level 20, so that she could learn Windbreak. Now you might be wondering why I need Windbreak this early, and well, that's because of the Ippon-Datra fight, right after Yusuke awakens to his persona. And I would have loved to talk about this fight, but my OBS decided to do a little bit of trolling and decided to corrupt the footage of the Madarame Palace. Luckily, I found the save file from right before the boss fight, so I was able to reenact it, but the Ippon-Datra fight, as well as the Arahabaki fight, are what the kids would say, lost the media. So I plead whoopsie daisies. Anyway, for the Madarame fight, I fuse a Leland Shi with Garu, Magaru, and Windbreak, mainly because she can do more magic damage than Nekomata. Now, on to the fight itself. For his first phase, I'm forced to use Windbreak with Joker because Madarame's eyes drain force attacks. But by doing this, it makes the first phase of this boss way easier, because if I can take out all the pieces all at once, then I no longer have to worry about them healing each other. Now for his second phase, he'll use a move called True Fake, where he'll create elemental replicas of himself to attack. Luckily for me, the replica of Joy is weak to force attacks, but the replica of Sorrow and Mirth repel it, so I'm forced to continue using Windbreak. Really, the only other thing I need to look out for is the fact that they can combo me by striking my party's weakness. But if I get lucky enough to avoid that, which sometimes I didn't, I can get him to the point where he starts to make replicas with status ailments. So that way I can land technical hits and stack baton passes to deal large amounts of damage to him. And after a while of doing this, Madarame eventually goes down. And now with Yusuke freed, he continues to work with us, even though he's useless in this run. But another teammate is always good. So for now, all we have to do is wait for the change of heart. And you know what that means, chat. More Takemi for me. But other than Mommy, I have other social links to work on and start, because Ryuji and Mishima both let me in on Operation Maid Watch. An operation where we hire a maid, so she calls us master, so every otaku's wet dream. But then it turns out that said maid is my homeroom teacher, so every otaku's wet dream. But saving that for later, because busting my ass in the wage cage actually actually pays off, unlike in real life, but I digress, because I get my foothold in the world of Japanese politics by starting the Sun Arcana with Yoshida, and his social link is really good because it allows me to scam shadows out of money, just like how real politicians do. Then after this, I followed up by starting the Faith Arcana with Kasumi, and sure, I can question why she only has 5 rank ups, but I'll just accept it as less work for me. Speaking about less work, I end up calling said maid service again, because I was really lonely, and that starts the Temperance Arcana with Kawamami. Following that, because my Jack Frost had Mabufu, I end up starting the Strength Arcana with the 2 Highlander twins, and this social link will come in handy later. But for now, Madarame successfully has a change of heart, and then to celebrate this time, we decide to go out for some delicious pancakes. God, Persona 6 needs to release this year. These jokes are kinda getting stale. Kinda like burnt bread. Yeah, I'm sorry about that one. But to make it up to you guys, I start the Justice Arcana with everyone's favorite greasy rat. But instead of enjoying a nice long break from being Phantom Thieves, I mean the Yakuza 5, we instead end up getting caught by the Student Council President, because Ryuji makes it his personal goal to scream that we're the Phantom Thieves every time we're out in public. So we have no choice but to cooperate with her and take down a crime boss. But it's not like we're going to get a meeting with this guy or anything. Would you look at that? But thanks to his blackmail, we can now enter his palace, so that Makoto can awaken to her persona. And unlike Yusuke, I actually managed to record the Suki fight. The only problem is that the fight was kind of easy due to An and Dormina. Really, the only challenge I had was that Morgana was replaced with Makoto. And unlike Morgana, Makoto is, well, to use Sai's words, pretty useless. But regardless of her weighing me down, I was able to finish it off due to being a bit over-leveled thanks to the last palace. Now before this infiltration, I fuse an Anzu to get the skill Garula, so I can now do medium-sized force damage to an enemy. As well as Anzu gets the trait Wind Bloodline that decreases the SP cost of wind magic for this persona. Now on to the mini-bosses. For this palace, they're all kind of easy. For starters, Fuki utilizes wind magic, so all I had to do was use Windbreak on him, and boom, he takes himself out. Then we have to fight against Suki again, and while Makoto and An lay down to take a nap, with my high magic stat paired with Rakunda, me and Mona make quick work of this guy. Then to finish up the Oni fights, we faced Kenki, as well as the other 2. So for this fight, I kept putting ailments on Suki so that he couldn't land Mabufala on An, and as for Fuki, he kept raising the others' attacks. So as long as I debuffed, he would just keep doing that. So Kenki was the only one that ever attacked, and other than taking On out, he accomplished nothing. Well, he did finish off Makoto, but luckily I managed to Champions Cup both Joker and Mona with her before she went to Mimir, so it wasn't hard to finish off Kenki. Then finally for the Cerberus guarding the final Will Seed, the iconic Dormina stat came in clutch yet again. The only issue was I was running out of SP during this fight, so it was a bit more scuffed than it should have been. Luckily I had an air cannon to replace Morgana's Garula with, so now with all 3 Will Seeds and a path to the treasure laid out, it's time to steal Kaneshiro's heart. But before I do, I unlock Fusion Alarms, and this will definitely come in handy later, but for now I use it to make a Magarula accessory for An, so now Makoto can use the Garu ring. Now as for the Kaneshiro fight, his first phase is in his Piggytron, where debuffs will really come in handy. That is, up until it goes into its super VIP form, where I'm forced to guard with the entire party. Now you can stop him from using this move by giving him a rare item to distract him, but this motherfucking cat wanted to give him my Soma? Like buddy, Kaneshiro ain't worth that much. But after another turn, we decide on the Balm of Life, and after he nabs the loot, I was able to get in a few free hits, now that everyone can use wind magic. And after a while of willing, I managed to defeat Piggytron, but the fight's not over yet, because Kaneshiro will summon 2 flies to help him end battle. One will attack and the other will defend Kaneshiro. All the while he'll try to put ailments on your party, but you can put ailments on them as well. So my strategy was to use Joker and An for Dormina, then Baton Pass using wind magic to deal damage to all enemies. Then once both of his men go down, he really has nothing left other than his move, Make It Rain. But it only works once because he runs out of money. Then with a final Garula, Kaneshiro retreats to his Piggytron and we win the battle. Then afterwards he tries to tell us about another Persona user using palaces for their own benefit. But we really don't care, so we steal his treasure, Morgana dies, and now we're forced to wait for his change of heart. During this time, I only start 2 new social links, the Emperor with Yusuke and the Priestess with Makoto. And speaking about social links, I max out Ryuji's, so that his persona can now go Super Saiyan. Other than that, not much happens. Well, I say that, but the Phantom Thieves get targeted by a group called Medjed, and given that they named their group after something that looks like this, we decide that they're not really a threat. That was until they threatened to dox us. I guess we shouldn't have made an enemy with a creature known to have laser eyes. But it's not like a mysterious hacker will pop up out of nowhere and help us, right? Well, I'll be damned. Again. Because a mysterious hacker popped up out of nowhere, asking us to steal the heart of Futaba Sakura. And after rubbing our collective 5 brain cells together, excluding Ryuji of course, we realize that Futaba Sakura is Boss's daughter. So we ask him about it and he gets pissed. So Futaba is his daughter. Then we take the next logical step to get information. Breaking and entering. But we get caught by Boss, and instead of him reporting us to the police, he instead info dumps about Futaba's mom and how she eliminated herself from the game. But Futaba blames herself for it. So we decide to steal her heart to change her cognition about it. Also, she's the only one who can take down the little ghosty with laser eyes. Okay, starting with the mini bosses of this palace, we have Garuda. And really the only thing that he does that was annoying was spam Brainjack over and over and over. But once he did attack, he used wind magic, so it was another Fuki situation. Next up is Mott, and unlike in Nocturne, he's really easy to defeat. Yeah, sure, he has an ability to turn a party member into a Ketchi, but he's also weak to force attacks. And yeah, he does summon a Lamia to help him out, but it's just a Lamia. It can't do much. So Mott was kind of a pushover, both in this fight and his second fight later on. But before I get to Aliat, I fuse a Kurama Tengu, so that way I could get Garula and Magarula accessories. And sadly, that's the highest level of accessories I can make right now. But that's for later. Right now, I have to get my ass handed to me by an obelisk with boobs, because Aliat hits like fucking Truck-kun. But what if I don't let it hit at all? I'm sure you know what I mean, but to explain it, I made sure that she was asleep, either with On or Joker, before she could attack. Then I would have Mona clean up with a technical hit, and as for Makoto, well, she helped with chip damage, so she gets a gold star just for that. But when she finally went down, I nabbed the final will seed and sent out the calling card. Now because Futaba wants her heart stolen, she obviously isn't going to fight us for the treasure, but her mom Monster Cognition will, and when we try to attack it, nothing really happens. It's not until Futaba enters her own palace and awakens to her not safe for work persona that damage can actually happen to the Sphinx mom. Like there goes half of her health just like that. Then from there you need someone to operate the ballista. And as they do that, all you need to do is answer questions the Sphinx lady asks you correctly so that Futaba can damage it. Then when the ballista is ready, you can perform an all-out attack. Then when the ballista is ready again, all you gotta do is shoot it down one more time and it just kinda lays there. For a while actually. I don't know if my game was glitched or if I wasn't doing enough damage to finish it off, but it just kinda laid there while I wailed on it for a good bit, before Joker whipped out his gun and revoked MILF privileges. Then with it gone, and the palace actively crumbling beneath us, we leave and check up on Futaba, only to see her passed out on the street. But after a quick cameo from my wife, we learn that Futaba just does this, so we're forced to wait until she wakes up to deal with Medjed. In the meantime, I finished the Faith Arcana with Kasumi, for now at least, as well as I start the Star Arcana with Hifumi, and the Hanged Man Arcana with Iwai. But I can't give a fuck about that right now because my ass just pulled Takemi. Ain't nobody matching my freak. Sorry, what I meant to say was I maxed out Takemi's social link like any normal, healthy person would. And speaking about maxing out social links, I also finished Yoshida's as well. But he ain't getting the same reaction as Takemi though. Then after that, Futaba feels good enough to keep up her end of the deal to help us blow up Medjed before falling back asleep. But when she wakes back up, I can start the Hermit Arcana with her. Now normally another story event would happen right about now, but we get a well-deserved Hawaii vacation, insert another Yakuza reference here. But when we return to Tokyo, on a very sus day for a plane animation mind you, we find out that our heckin' chonkers of a principal got isekai'd by Truck-kun, and that people online are blaming us for it. Like, this isn't wholesome 100, guys. Chat, I really need you to pray for me for what I just uttered. So because of the heckin' chonker's death, we decide not to go after Okumura right now, but Morgana doesn't like that. So then we get the scene where parasocial Persona fans still get into internet arguments about to this day. In my opinion, I think Tatsuya was in the right during this argument, but let me know down below who you think was right. Anyway, Morgana meets Haru, they team up, Morgana dies again, and yeah, now it's time for the worst palace in this game. But before I can do anything in this palace, Haru needs to fully awaken to her persona, and we do that by fighting her fiancé. And even though Haru contributes nothing to the fight, it goes pretty well, mainly because I spammed Garula until he went down. Then from there, I need a key card to complete the rest of the palace. So I have to do 3 different fights against 3 different robots for the card. And the reason for these fights is to show you what their weaknesses are for the up and coming Okumura fight. But it doesn't matter because I have to use force magic no matter what. But after getting the card, I decided to do a network fusion for the first time ever, so that I could get a Thoth with concentrate and magic ability, but he'll come in handy later. As for my next fight, I have to take down 3 waves of worker bots, and sadly I'm not able to put any of them to sleep because robots don't sleep. You can even ask Makoto about that. Luckily these guys aren't hard, but the fact that they resist Garu's skills makes it a bit more challenging. Also, did I mention that they love to spam debuffs on my party? Because they love to spam debuffs on my party. Luckily that Thoth I said would come in handy later actually came in handy now because of concentrate. So when Joker was able to hit them, he was able to deal a nice chunk of damage to them. And then finally we had the Melchizedek guarding the final will seed, and he just so happens to be weak to wind magic, so it doesn't take much to knock him out and grab the final will seed. Now usually I send out the calling card on the very next day, but not this time. That's because on the 25th I can take a teammate to the jazz bar so they can learn concentrate. So I choose Makoto because On learns concentrate later, and as for Morgana, I can just give him the Crystal of Greed after this palace. So until then, I grind in Mementos until I can get at least to level 52. That way I can fuse Garuda for Garudine and Magarudine. But I ended up stumbling upon something far better. As mentioned before, I used a network fusion to make a Thoth. Well, I thought maybe I could make another network fusion to see if I could find any other good skills. And I did, with this Rangda, because I fused my Arsene with someone else's Haster. And if you don't know, Haster is a persona locked until the 3rd semester, that just so happens to have the move Vacuum Wave, a wind spell that does severe damage to all enemies, along with Debilitate and Wind Amp. So from there, I turned the Rangda into a Belphegor, and then fuse it with my Thoth from earlier to create this absolute nightmare of a Garuda. Now if this thing can't win against Okumura, then nothing will. Also, let me break the tension for a moment to tell you that I maxed out Kawakami's social link during this time. But anyway, back to our make or break fight. Okumura starts the fight like normal by sending out regular worker bots that just so happened to be weak to wind, so they weren't an issue. The next wave resist wind, but with Morgana having windbreak, that means I can just blow them away with Joker. Who would have thought the severe magic move would do severe damage? And the 3rd phase was just the same as the 2nd. Now, it's at the 4th phase where Okumura will randomly buff one of the robot's defense to make him explode. But bad news for Okumura, the 4th wave of robots are weak to wind, so I can just baton pass for even more damage. Now at the 5th wave, he finally uses Sacrifice Order to make one of the robots explode. And after that happens, he raises the defense of one robot so I fail to wipe them all out, and it runs away, leaving me to start the whole phase over. But when Okumura buffs his robot's defense this time, I use Dikaija with On to remove the buff. And with both Makoto and Joker concentrated, this wave is made quick work of. But he's not done yet, because he has one more big bad bot ready to attack. But little did Okumura know that Joker had Debilitate, and combine that with a concentrated vacuum wave, and there goes a lot of its HP. Then the game actually feels bad for Okumura here and makes the robot perform its fatal move, Big Bang Challenge. But my party withstood the attack, and On took care of it with a weak-ass Garula. Then, after we guard the Harubot's explosion, all that's left to do is finish off Okumura once and for all. But we don't finish him off, this guy does. And with the fight over, I can get back to my regularly scheduled free time, where I managed to complete On, Yusuke, and Makoto's social links, unlocking all 3 of their second tier personas. And speaking about personas, Kasumi awakens to hers after stumbling into a mysterious palace that definitely won't be important later. And after a quick and easy fight, thanks to Joker, we pull Kasumi out of the palace, where she refuses to become a phantom thief. And that's probably a good thing, given that a couple days later, Okumura doesn't have a change of heart, because the guy literally dies on live TV. And seeing as we did send out a calling card for him, as well as the rumors about the principal, sorry, I mean the heckin' chonkers, I don't know why I do this to myself, but I digress, people are now starting to view the Phantom Thieves, aka the Yakuza 5, as criminals. Also, I start Oya's social link, I just didn't know where to throw that in there, but yeah. Anyway, speaking about criminals, we decide that for the school fair, we should go with the masses vote and get Akechi as our speaker. Because with him there, we can probably get more information about the mental shutdown case, to use to prove our innocence. But the plan backfires when Akechi realizes that we're the Phantom Thieves, aka the Yakuza 5. Anyway, he gives us an ultimatum. We help him steal Sai Nijima's heart, or we go to jail. And seeing as Japan has a 99% conviction rate, we decide to steal the heart. Now, most of the mini-bosses in Sai's palace were easy enough to take care of, thanks to you-know-what. Even the ball fight, guarding the final will seed, was easy enough to take out, thanks to Morgana and Windbreak. But what about the one-on-one fights? Obviously I can't use Mona there, so I'm forced to whip out my Principality to use Windbreak on the 2 Ganeshas before finishing them off. As for the 3 Rangda, as well as Thor, they really don't have an Ice Cube's chance in hell against me. And after the rat pulls a Junpei Iori, Ace Detective, to work around Sai's cheating, we now can send out the calling card. Is what I would have said if it wasn't for Akechi wanting to wait until day of to send it out. But hey, I'm not complaining, that's more free time for me. And I utilize this free time to my fullest by starting the Empress Arcana with Haru, before Akechi wants a taste of my power. I'm not sure what little bro was thinking, but I sure as hell didn't hold back. Now, as for social links I finished, I managed to rank 10 both Mishima and Dr. Maruki before I sent out the calling card. And with this boss fight, our work as the Phantom Thieves can end. Now, in order to start this fight, you need to send a teammate to go shoot down the glass panes on the roulette wheel. Then once you catch her cheating, the real fight can begin. Now, what determines her attacks is said roulette wheel. And lucky for me, it lands on electric magic, which means wind will do more damage, so I'm able to land pretty big hits on her. But then out of nowhere, unprovoked, she unleashes Berserker Dance and wipes out my entire party. So on my second attempt, I made sure not to deal that much damage to her, so that she can use the roulette wheel to let me know when she's going to use Berserker Dance. And after surviving it this time, I'm free to wail on her as much as possible until she goes down. But as we get the treasure, more and more enemies spawn in. And from here, I'm sure you know how it goes. Joker acts as a distraction, he ends up getting caught, then arrested, and then he finally tells Sai about the past year. And then after a lot of info dumping about metaverse shenanigans, we find out that Akechi is working with Shido, and that he's the big bad behind all of this. Literally, the game even starts because of him. So because of that, we all decide that he needs a change of heart. Now Shido's whole palace revolves around getting 5 letters of recommendation, and you do that by fighting 5 bosses. The first one being Yamata no Orochi, and similar to the Archangel fight in Kamoshida's palace, it will concentrate, then raise its attack, and then lower a party member's defense. So all you have to do is guard with said party member for the first letter. Next is the Fornius fight, and really all he tries to do is brainwash my party, which didn't work half the time thanks to Detox and the fact that all my party members can cure ailments now. So getting the second letter wasn't hard. As for the third fight, it's against the Hanuman with 2 Garuda, so windbreak will be needed here. But there's really not that much to be said about this fight because once the Garuda go down, Hanuman just spams physical attacks. So there really wasn't that much substance for this fight. So I decided to take a break and face off against the Kali and the Dakines guarding the final will seed. And I say that this is a break because unlike with the bosses in this palace, I can actually put them to sleep. So yeah, this fight was even easier than the last 3. Now on to the 4th letter, and it's held by an Oberon that summons Titanias, but with a single concentrated vacuum wave, the Titanias go down. So most of this fight was just him summoning enemies rather than attacking. So once he went down, it only took one more vacuum wave to finish off the fairies for the 4th letter. Now for the final letter. All I need to do is fight this Yakuza boss. And in the past, this fight was always hard, but not this time, mainly thanks in part to Debilitate, as well as the fact that Futaba randomly chooses to buff my entire party by charging them up. So I actually managed to take him down first try. So now with all the letters, we can steal Shido's heart, is what I would have said if it wasn't for Akechi and his power to make things go berserk. But luckily for me, they lowered their defense for me, so taking them out wasn't a problem, and neither was Akechi's first phase, because little did he know that all my party members now can concentrate their attacks. So after he fails to kill me in his first phase, he goes into his second, where still all my party members can concentrate their attacks. Now I'll give Akechi some credit, he does set up a magical wall, but all that made me do was sacrifice some HP off of On to break it. But arguably, this phase was much easier than his first. And after Akechi sacrifices himself, I finish off his social link and make my path to the treasure. Now before this fight, I finished the social link with the twins, mainly because I have something in mind for later, but that will have to wait until after Shido. Now for his first 3 phases, Shido will resist different attacks, is what I would have said if it wasn't for Windbreak, breaking this fight. Also, while I was in the Velvet Room, I fused the Titania with Phanta Ray and Spellmaster, so that way I could save on SP. But really, the only thing he had during this phase was Unholy Convergence. But even then, that wasn't scary because I finished him off before he could even use it. Next up was his bald ass phase, and what really helped me during this phase was actually the Crystal of Greed I'd given to Morgana, because with it, I could attack with Joker and charge him up all in the same turn. Pair that with Debilitate my beloved, and I was able to breeze past this phase as well. Then finally we have his meaty phase. I don't know what to call it, but it's really not that difficult from his last phase. The only difference is that he's a bit bulkier now, literally, but he also uses Tyrant Fist that KOs Mona, Tyrant Purge that misses Makoto, and Tyrant Wave that hits but doesn't deal that much damage to take me out. Then from here, I have a one-on-one fight with Shido, but it doesn't last long because after I hit him with a concentrated Phanta Ray, he ends up taking himself out with Tyrant's Judgment. And at first, I was confused because none of my personas reflect physical until I learned that Tyrant's Judgment is a bless attack, and that Garuda reflects bless attacks. So we steal his heart, and after another scene that Persona fans still argue about to this day 10 years later, all we can do is wait and see if our mission was successful. Now during this time I finish up all my remaining social links: Futaba, Sojiro, Haru, Hifumi, and Iwai. So with nothing left to do, I start the Fortune Arcana with Chihaya, as well as the Tower Arcana with Shinya. So as I work on those, I wait until Shido has a change of heart, and eventually he does, right on national television. But for whatever reason, the general public ignores Shido's crimes and acts like the Yakuza 5 never existed. See, I got it right this time, guys. So we do the only thing we can do. We do a deep dive into Mementos to see what's up with the public's cognition, and there we find Kamoshida's Cum Chalice from the first boss fight. But before I mention anything else, I do get to rank 10 with Morgana so we can finally learn Evade Electric. Now back to the Cum Chalice. And when we fight it, well, it really isn't a fight yet, because anytime we do try to attack it, the masses heal it back up. And after a while, we get kicked out of Mementos. And to take it a step even further, we also get kicked out of reality. So for failing my rehabilitation, Igor sentences me to the French's favorite pastime. But I refuse, so instead I fuse together Lavenza, and that pisses Igor off. Or should I say the Holy Grail, aka Yaldabaoth. So then Mementos fuses with Shibuya, you know, your average Tuesday, am I right? And the only way to fix it is to stop the God of Control. Now in order to reach Yaldabaoth, I have to fight the 4 Archangels first, and I would talk about them, but instead I'll talk about this. Remember how I completed the Strength Arcana? Well, with it done, I can fuse any persona regardless of my level. So I might have fused Lucifer. While I haven't mentioned it yet, but SP was really never a problem during this run because of the amount of ways you can get SP healing items. But thanks to Lucifer's Allure of Wisdom and Spellmaster, along with my Invigorate 3 accessory, I never need to worry about Joker's SP ever again. Also, the angels were a cakewalk. Anyway, on to the Holy Grail fight. So first things first, I send On to cut the veins to the Holy Grail, so that way it could no longer heal. And then I concentrate, debilitate, and then kick its ass. Then once the Holy Grail phase is finished, I fight the thing as Yaldabaoth, and this fight goes as follows. Yaldabaoth will randomly grow an arm, causing one of the 7 deadly sins to attack you. Now each sin has its own ailment, but really the only bad one is greed because it doubles your SP cost. But they all disappear after a turn is up anyway. Now the Gun of Lust reflects wind magic, so I have to use Windbreak still with Morgana, because I gave both On and Makoto Magarala so they could target Yaldabaoth as well as the hands, although Joker did most of the work. As for Mona, he of course used Windbreak, but if Makoto couldn't heal, he was our backup, as well as he would also charge Joker. But nothing really interesting happened until Yaldabaoth went for Divine Apex, so I had to debuff and heal up my party, just the guard, and survive the attack. Then when he goes for it again, I destroy all his hands, and by doing that, it weakens the attack by a lot. Then with one more Phanta Ray from Joker, the God of Control loses control, is what I would have said if it wasn't for a scripted knockout, that then forces the will of the people onto Joker, causing him to awaken to Sataniel, where I'm forced by the game to use an almighty skill to finish off the corrupt god for good. Now with its defeat, Morgana dies for a 3rd time this challenge, and I'm forced to turn myself into the police to find Shido guilty. Some Christmas, am I right? Well, actually I don't have to, because Akechi takes the fall for me, even though he's not supposed to be alive right now. But I don't care, because that means date night with Takemi some Christmas, am I right, chat? But if you thought we were done, then you're sadly mistaken, because once the new year rolls around, not only is Sphinx Lady alive, and to be honest chat, I might have to reinstate her MILF privileges, but more importantly, Morgana's a twink, so something is going on. I know East Asian beauty standards are high, but I don't think that explains what happened to my cat. But what does explain is Akechi, because he was free to walk away without facing any time for his crimes. So me and him team up to solve this mystery, and we solve it pretty fast because Kasumi finds the palace where she awakened to her persona. And since the metaverse should be gone, we decide to check it out. And when we do check it out, we find that it belongs to Dr. Maruki, because Maruki wanted to create a world without any suffering, and his prime example of that was Kasumi. because she's actually Sumire, Kasumi's younger sister. But Maruki changed her cognition to make her think that she's her sister, so she didn't feel bad about her death. Anyway, she sides with Maruki, so me and Adachi have to fight this Haster. But really, all this is a scripted fight so that Joker and Akechi can show off their Showtime attack. Then Maruki gives us an ultimatum. I have 9 days to change my mind about this reality. So during those 9 days, I try to convince my team to go back to the old reality. And after 9 days, none of them are convinced. So me and Akechi face Maruki alone. But first Sumire fights me to convince me to stay in this reality. And seeing as I null physical and reflect bless, she can't even touch me. But her persona can, but luckily for me, my teammates rejoin me for this fight. Now the Cendrillon fight is really only hard thanks to the Bakis that she absorbs. They also reflect wind, so that's another headache. Luckily they can't damage Joker at all really, so at this point this is just an endurance test. But after we defeat Sumire's persona, we all reject Maruki's reality and start the infiltration. And here's where I unlock the rest of Sumire's social link. And because I need to go to Mementos to finish this palace, I decide to wrap everything up before coming back here, starting off by finishing up Shinya's, Chihaya's, and Sumire's social links. That way she can unlock her ultimate persona. Then I hang out with all my party members so they can unlock their third tier personas as well. I then go and unlock the doors of the palace in Mementos, and after that I finish my final social link of the game, the Devil Arcana, with Oya, with only 2 days to spare. And as for the palace itself, with Lucifer, the mini-bosses are a cakewalk. Plus the iconic Dormina stat works again. So I really don't have much to say about the infiltration at this point, so on to the final boss. Now the thing that makes Azathoth annoying is that if you use a multi-targeting move like Vacuum Wave, its main body will only take a piss amount of damage, because the hands it spawns are technically blocking it. So it wasn't until halfway into the fight where I came up with a strategy to hit the main body for the most damage as possible. First, I would debilitate Azathoth's main body. Then I would windbreak with Mona, that way all hands could be attacked. Next up was On, and at this point in the game I could fuse Haster, so I gave On the accessory so she could use Fanta Ray, and I would use it on one of the hands and then baton pass to Mona, who needed to be concentrated so that he could use Magarodine, taking out all the hands, and then striking another hand's weakness. Then with the hands gone, I could baton pass to a concentrated Joker to use Fanta Ray on Azathoth's main body. Now in terms of attacks Maruki had, well, Tyrant's Chaos was the only scary one, and Futaba blocked it, so he had nothing. Well, he would sometimes randomly stop a certain action for a turn, like guarding or healing, so I guess that was something. But I mainly kept to my strategy, and after a while I was finally able to target Maruki himself and finish the fight, is what I would have said if it wasn't for the fact that Maruki evolves his persona into Adam Kadmon. Now, unlike Azathoth, I don't need to come up with a master strategy to defeat him this time. I can just wail on him like you would any normal fight. But my ass got saved by my teammates, not once, not twice, not thrice, but 4 separate times. By all accounts, I should have lost this fight, but the game hit me with that nuh-uh, so I ended up getting to the 3rd stage of this fight, that being the stage where Maruki fuses with his persona, and I can't do anything besides some doo-doo ass damage. But luckily Futaba finds its weakness in between its eyes, so as my party members act as distractions, I swing up on the Adam Kadmon's face, and with the single press of the button, I officially end this challenge where I beat Persona 5 Royal by only using wind magic. And with Maruki's defeat, we take back the true reality. And a couple months later, Joker boards his train to return back to his old life, and with one final Akechi ball tickle over with, he looks out of the window, reminiscing on his past year, as the screen fades to black and the credits roll. So, can you beat Persona 5 Royal with only wind magic? Yeah, you can. Originally, I thought this would be impossible due to Okumura, but getting the best wind move in the game right before the fight made it easy. Who would have thought? But anyway, if you watched this far, I figure you probably enjoyed the video, so why not subscribe? It's free and it helps me out. But regardless, thank you all so much for watching, and remember to have a fantastic day.